Alberta's energy resources, oil, gas, bitumen, all of our agricultural products are exempt from tariffs. And that's what we've got to be working towards for every single product.
They didn't want you to see this coming. While the world was distracted by political theater in Washington, something seismic was happening in the shadows. A deal so explosive, so perfectly orchestrated, that when it finally broke into the light, it didn't just change the game. It obliterated the board entirely. Ladies and gentlemen, Alberta just detonated a political nuclear bomb that will reshape the entire North American continent. And the fallout? Ottawa never saw it coming. This is the story of how a Canadian province went rogue, how President Trump turned the border into America's strategic weapon, and how the most audacious energy deal in North American history just rewrote the rules of power forever. The question that's about to tear Canada apart: what happens when provinces stop asking permission and start taking control of their own destiny? 4 million barrels. Every single day, Alberta ships 4 million barrels of liquid gold to the United States. For decades, this pipeline of prosperity was the backbone of North American energy security. Then came the massacre. Northern Gateway, executed by federal decree. Keystone XL, assassinated by political cowardice. Energy East, strangled slowly by regulatory torture. One by one, Canada's energy dreams were slaughtered on the altar of virtue signaling. The carnage was biblical. 2.5 million barrels per day of lost production. $55 billion annually vaporized. $17 billion stolen directly from Alberta's treasury. Equal amounts ripped from federal coffers. Entire communities withered. Families scattered. Dreams buried under the rubble of environmental extremism and federal incompetence. But in the darkness, something was stirring. Premier Danielle Smith wasn't just another politician making empty promises. She was a strategist preparing for war. While Ottawa played politics, Alberta was building something unprecedented. A secret alliance that would bypass every federal gatekeeper, sidestep every liberal roadblock, and deliver the most shocking political earthquake in Canadian history. The stakes couldn't be higher. $9 trillion in discoverable reserves. The future of Western Canada. The survival of entire provinces hanging in the balance. For months, the conspiracy remained hidden. No leaks, no rumors, just cold, calculating preparation for the moment that would change everything. While Canadian politicians shuffled papers and made speeches, President Donald Trump was playing three-dimensional chess with the entire North American continent. This wasn't about immigration or drugs or trade wars. This was about something far more fundamental: the complete restructuring of continental power dynamics. Trump understood what Ottawa refused to acknowledge. Borders aren't just lines on maps. They're instruments of control. And whoever controls those instruments controls everything that flows between nations: people, goods, influence, and ultimately, power itself. The results were immediate and devastating to Canada's complacency. Enhanced surveillance networks, drone patrols cutting through the wilderness, advanced screening protocols that could identify threats Ottawa had ignored for years. Canada's response was pathetic. After Trump imposed pressure claiming fentanyl was flowing north, they scrambled to deploy drug-detecting dogs and drones. The humiliation was complete. Less than 1% of seized fentanyl actually came from Canada, but they still bent the knee. Listen to their surrender. The President and our government have agreed that we can do more collectively to secure the border. We have regular members out to the border in uniform on patrol, which is something a year ago we weren't doing. But Trump's masterstroke wasn't security. It was economic warfare disguised as trade policy. The tariffs? You've been hearing about tariffs. We're taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. $2 billion a day, and we're doing very well. $2 billion daily, flowing directly into American coffers while Canadian officials scrambled to understand how completely they'd been outmaneuvered. The mainstream media screamed about 150 Canadians detained by ICE, painting it as innocent persecution. The reality destroyed their narrative completely. Over 70% had criminal histories. The remaining 30% were in America illegally. Trump's enforcement wasn't persecution. It was accountability that Canadian authorities had refused to impose themselves. Every action exposed the same pattern: American leadership delivering results while Canadian leadership delivered excuses. The announcement came like lightning from clear skies. Premier Danielle Smith, standing before cameras with the confidence of someone holding a royal flush, delivered words that would echo through history. Alberta has finalized an agreement with a U.S. energy consortium to build a brand new oil pipeline straight across the border. This wasn't desperation. This was surgical precision. According to insiders, Alberta had been orchestrating this masterpiece for months in absolute secrecy. The operational security was flawless. No leaks, no rumors, no advance warning to the federal vultures who would have killed it in the cradle. They didn't ask Ottawa for permission. They found the legal wiggle room in trade and commerce rules and drove a pipeline through it, straight to the Trump administration and Republican-controlled states. The United States didn't just accept Alberta's proposal, they embraced it like a long-lost ally returning home. Republican governors, major American oil companies, private investors, they lined up to sign agreements before Ottawa even knew negotiations existed. The project would link Alberta's oil sands directly to American Midwest refineries, breaking free from every bottleneck Ottawa had created. But here's the genius. They established joint environmental review boards and state-level partnerships that made federal interference a bureaucratic nightmare. Ottawa couldn't stop what they couldn't legally touch. President Trump's response was everything Alberta hoped for and everything Ottawa feared. This wasn't quiet tolerance. This was enthusiastic partnership from a pro-energy White House that understood strategic opportunity. The United States gained steady flows of affordable North American crude, cheaper than OPEC, more reliable than hostile nations. Alberta gained billions in infrastructure investment and guaranteed export volumes. With fuel prices always a political flashpoint and 2026 midterms approaching, securing additional affordable energy from a trusted ally wasn't just good policy, it was electoral genius. Early forecasts revealed the true magnitude: over 20,000 construction jobs, thousands more in permanent operations, billions in infrastructure investment, all flowing to Alberta and American partners who actually appreciated economic opportunity. The agreement established mutual energy security cooperation, drawing on frameworks from the old 2005 Security and Prosperity Partnership. Alberta and the United States were building a cross-border energy alliance without Ottawa's permission or participation. The impact was instantaneous and catastrophic. Within hours of Alberta's announcement, Ottawa's entire power structure was in freefall. No federal agency had advance warning. No cabinet minister saw it coming. Not even the Prime Minister's office knew what was happening until the deal was already signed, sealed, and delivered to the American people. Mark Carney's inner circle went into full panic mode, scrambling for any legal hook to stop Alberta's liberation. They held emergency meetings, hunting desperately for jurisdiction under international trade agreements or environmental regulations. But legal experts destroyed their hopes immediately. While international trade falls under federal authority, provinces have clear constitutional rights to enter commercial agreements with private stakeholders and state-level partners. The reaction across Western Canada was swift and decisive. Saskatchewan came out swinging in support, calling Alberta's deal a step toward energy independence and hinting they might follow suit. Manitoba expressed cautious interest while demanding federal dialogue, the political equivalent of testing which way the wind was blowing. Quebec and British Columbia responded with predictable hysteria, blasting Alberta for undermining federal unity and ignoring climate commitments. The irony was exquisite. Provinces that had lived off Western resource wealth through equalization payments for decades suddenly discovered constitutional principles when the West found alternatives. This ignited something that had been smoldering for years. Western alienation exploded into open rebellion. Alberta's language began mirroring Quebec's historical autonomy fights, but with one crucial difference: they had the economic power to make it stick. The deal poured gasoline on the fire of regional resentment. For decades, Alberta and Saskatchewan had been treated like ATMs for the rest of the country. Their resources extracted, their wealth redistributed, their political voices ignored. Now the message was clear: we don't need you. We don't need your permission. We don't need your approval. We have willing American partners who appreciate what you take for granted. Alberta's premier issued an ultimatum that sent chills through Ottawa. Any federal attempt to stop the pipeline would face constitutional resistance all the way to the Supreme Court. This transcended energy policy. It became a fundamental question about the nature of Canadian Confederation itself. Can provinces secure their economic futures when the federal government actively works against their interests? Alberta had just provided their answer, yes, with American help. What Alberta accomplished went far beyond a single pipeline deal. They had just proven that the old rules of North American politics were dead, buried under the rubble of federal incompetence and liberal ideological extremism. If this precedent holds, it could rewrite the entire continental power structure. U.S. states and Canadian provinces working directly together, bypassing dysfunctional federal governments that serve ideology over prosperity. The benefits were immediate and measurable. American construction, transportation, and refining jobs multiplying across the Midwest. Alberta workers finally getting the opportunities their own federal government had denied them for years. The project incorporated advanced leak detection systems, carbon offset programs, and state-of-the-art refining technology. Environmental protection through engineering excellence, not economic destruction through regulatory warfare. America strengthened its position in global energy markets while reducing dependence on unstable regions. Alberta gained access to the world's largest economy without federal gatekeepers destroying the opportunity. With global oil markets in flux, OPEC cutting supply, and geopolitical tensions threatening energy security worldwide, Alberta's resources became more than just commodities. They became strategic weapons in America's arsenal. $9 trillion in discoverable reserves, the largest energy treasure trove on Earth. And for the first time in years, there was a clear path to unlock that wealth without federal interference. Other provinces watched with intense interest, calculating whether they too could benefit from direct American partnerships rather than federal dependence. The message was spreading. Prosperity doesn't require Ottawa's permission. It requires willing partners and the courage to bypass failed systems. What emerged was a vision of North American integration that transcended traditional federal boundaries, regions working together based on shared interests rather than arbitrary political divisions. Alberta faced a choice that will define the future of North America: economic survival or political submission. They chose survival. President Trump's America faced a choice: support productive allies or tolerate failed partnerships. They chose support. Real families will benefit from thousands of new jobs. American consumers will enjoy reliable, affordable energy. Economic prosperity will flow where political correctness once strangled opportunity. Meanwhile, Ottawa's politics of obstruction and environmental virtue signaling left them exactly where they belonged: isolated, irrelevant, and bypassed by the forces of real progress. This pipeline represents more than infrastructure. It's proof that productive partnerships can overcome political obstacles. That economic reality ultimately defeats ideological fantasy. That prosperity rewards those brave enough to seize it. Alberta chose American partnership over Canadian political correctness. President Trump's policies created the framework for this success. Together, they've written a new chapter in continental prosperity that leaves failed federal approaches exactly where they belong: in the past, with all the other rejected Canadian dreams. The future of North America no longer runs through Ottawa or Washington bureaucracies. It runs through direct partnerships between regions that share values of hard work, economic growth, and practical problem solving. Alberta lit the fuse. Trump provided the explosive. And together, they just detonated the old order forever.